The goal of this video is to figure out the probability of getting a good Edgar random on your team. But first, we have to break down the concept of probability. Probability. Probability can be defined as the number of favorable outcomes. So, number of favorable outcomes over the number of possible outcomes. So number of possible outcomes. This formula is going to help us find our solution. Now we need to define what a good random actually is. Good random. Now, we know that a good random needs a certain amount of skill. So let's represent the amount of skill with a variable s. Obviously, in order for a random to be classified as a good random, they need to have at least more than 0 amount of skill, which means s is greater than 0. And by s being greater, this looks like a 5. So s is greater than 0. You need to have some sort of skill to be a good random. So let's think about it this way. Skill can't be measured by quantity, and skill is more of what you can do in the game. You could say someone has no skill or 0 skill, which means that any number above 0 means they have some skill. And definitely we need some skill for a good random. So now that we defined that a good random needs at least more than 0 amount of skill, that means a bad random, hold up, let me switch colors, bad random, a bad random has less than or equal to 0 skill. However, skill can't be negative, so really the actual equation is s equals 0. Cross this one out because this one isn't true. So it's universally known that every Edgar player has 0 skill, and some even may go as far to say that Edgars have non-existent skill. And what people mean by non-existent is like their skill doesn't even exist, not even 0. Technically, you could say that their skill level is imaginary. So this is equivalent to imaginary, and imaginary is equivalent to the square root of -1. So people are saying Edgars have either 0 skill or their skill doesn't even exist. Like it's not even integer or a real number, it's just imaginary. So now we're in a bit of a dilemma. If an Edgar skill is imaginary, this can be represented by the square root of -1 we put here. But the square root of -1 doesn't apply to any of our inequalities shown here. However, we can come up with the conclusion that if Edgar has an imaginary amount of skill, that basically means 0 skill in Brawl Stars terms, and if Edgar has imaginary skill, that means they probably won't help out the team anyway, meaning Edgar will still be part of the bad random category right here. So let's go back to our probability formula, and let's look at the denominator first, which is the number of possible outcomes. Now for simplicity's sake, let's say there's only 2 possibilities. My bad, guys. I should be changing to different colors. 2 possibilities. It's you're either the bad random or you're the good random. This applies to any of the brawlers. However, for Edgar, there is an exception. There isn't a good Edgar. There is no good Edgar in the game. There just isn't a good Edgar random. So that only leads to one possible outcome, which means every time you get paired up with an Edgar player, there's 100% chance. There is 100% chance that you're gonna get a bad random. So what does this mean? Since there's no good Edgar random, that means you have a 0% chance. 0% chance for good Edgar random, which means we can conclude that getting a good Edgar random is 0% or impossible. And let me switch to different color. And that's our final solution.